Now on Big Ten Today, James Franklin says preseason hype means nothing. Jim Knowles says his unit has to be great now. Penn State insider Audrey Snyder makes sense of it all. Plus, our training camp crew makes its way to College Park. A first-hand take on what the cupboard looks like for Locks and the Terps heading into a key 2025. This is Big Ten Today. Welcome inside this edition of Big Ten Today. I'm your host, Rick Pizzo. Excited to send you to College Park. Our training camp crew had the chance to chat with Mike Locksley and check out Terps practice. All they had to see coming your way. Plus, we also hear from Illinois head coach Bret Bielema with so many expectations heaped upon the Illini. Speaking of Illinois, among a group of 6 Big Ten teams ranked inside the top 20 in the recently released coaches poll, Ohio State tops that rankings at number 2, with Penn State and Oregon also inside the top 10. Illinois is 12th, Michigan 14, and Indiana, currently preseason in the coaches poll, ranked number 19. And while Ohio State may be ranked ahead of Penn State in the coaches poll, Audrey Snyder and everybody else who covers Penn State is well aware of the expectations heaped upon this Nittany Lion team. Audrey, welcome in. I know they just had media days in State College recently. How is this particular team handling all of the preseason hype it's receiving?
You know, Rick, the thing that's been so fascinating is that, the James Franklin 1-0 each week mantra, it's staying true to this offseason. I mean, for as much hype is surrounding this program, again, living in State College, you hear it, you see it every day. Penn State feels very normal right now, right? It's the same practice routines. It's the same talking points. It's we know we have a really good team, but you have to get back to that point. And this team knows what it takes to get back there. And, I mean, you bring this amount of talent back, and certainly the expectations are there. But also for Penn State, I think this is where kind of that James Franklin, the years of drilling down that mentality, I think this is a season where that type of thing can really help them pay off.
And obviously one thing that could help as well, the confidence that comes along with not just reaching the college football playoff, but picking up a couple of wins in those games. And then one of the biggest additions in the offseason, Audrey, was not recruiting or keeping guys like Singleton or Allen in State College, but going out and getting Jim Knowles off his defensive national championship with Ohio State. What are the players saying about their new defensive coordinator?
They're excited. I mean, I think when you look at it, you say, okay, this is a defense that's given Penn State fits the last few years with Jim Knowles at Ohio State. And I think it's not only are you able to go out and bring him in, right? And the message that sends to the rest of the sport of, hey, this program's for real. Financially, it's going to make those commitments. But then you look at it from the player perspective, and there's been a lot of idea spread that's gone on since Jim Knowles got here. I had a chance to sit down with Drew Aller this summer. And one of the things Aller told me was, when I met with Jim Knowles and some of his analysts that he brought with him, they gave me the scouting report from last year of, hey, this is what we saw in you. These are some areas where I think you can improve. And again, that's instrumental. Now, how quickly does Knowles get this defense up to speed? I mean, that's one of the biggest storylines this preseason. But like he said, hey, I'm used to installing my defense all over the place. I've done this before. You kind of pick up best practices along the way. But no doubt, I mean, the benefit of Jim Knowles in State College extends well beyond the Penn State defense.
Well, I thought it was interesting, Audrey, because I listened to some of his comments over the weekend, and he said this defense knows this is the time. They have to be great now. We cannot wait. And he said that may affect what he installs and how he installs it. What exactly does he mean?
I think what he means is, this is on the players right now. And he said, I have to make sure that we do everything to put them in positions to succeed. But also, you have to be realistic about the strength of this defense and the talent that you have. I mean, they know the talent that they brought back. They know when you have a guy like Zane Durant, when you have a guy like Dennis Sutton, when you have a cornerback like A.J. Harris, and so on and so forth. This has all been geared up for this year. I mean, you don't get all these players back and then go out and bring in Jim Knowles and say, we're just going to hope for the best. No, this is a program that is all in on winning right now. And Jim Knowles understands that. He recognizes that. And it's on him to kind of put this defense together in ways that, are best suited to their strengths. I mean, this is a Penn State team that, again, they know the talent that they have really at all three levels on the defense, but they know that it's on the players to get this thing rolling and get it headed in the right direction.
You mentioned Durant, Dennis Sutton, two of the stars of this team, guys who we know are known commodities, are going to produce at their positions. But there were obviously some significant departures, top 5 NFL draft picks from that defense. So which players do you look at on the defensive side and think to yourself, that player not only has the ability to step up and make that next step this year, but probably has to for the defense to be where it wants to be?
Yeah, I think that A.J. Harris, the cornerback, is perhaps flying a little bit under the radar. I think this guy's a stud. I mean, I think when you look at this defense, especially what Terry Smith has been able to do with all the production of these corners, I think they have a big-time playmaker there. Another one back there in that secondary that's really interesting is safety King Mack. Now, this is a guy who, in the day and age of the transfer portal, this is one of the more crazy stories. King Mack commits to Penn State, plays his freshman year, looks promising as a safety, transfers to Alabama, spends last season at Alabama, keeping an eye on Penn State from afar. Sure enough, this winter comes around, he's back in State College. And so he's in the mix there for that, that safety competition opposite Zakee Wheatley. So, they've got guys, but yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, I still think this defense has superstar potential. And, you look at it over time and you say, okay, yeah, these guys have always played at a high level defensively during James Franklin's tenure. Now, obviously, they ratcheted up against, with Manny Diaz, and then we saw it again last year with Tom Allen. But Deni Dennis Sutton, I think, is going to be one of the best players in college football. Zane Durant, again, you mentioned him earlier. Again, another big-time player. But, yeah, I think in that secondary, too, there's some guys that are perhaps a little bit under the radar, but certainly not around here.
Audrey, let's focus on offense. You just mentioned Drew Aller and his conversation with Jim Knowles when Knowles was first hired. I'm curious as to what you've seen from Aller throughout his career, not his evolution as a player, but his evolution as a leader, which is obviously so critical at that position.
For sure. And I'm actually working on a big story on Drew Aller this week that I'll have up on Inside the Lions. And one of the interesting things to me is trying to figure out Drew Aller, the person, right? He'll tell you, he's like, I am naturally a homebody. I'm not a big attention-seeking guy. And getting him to become that vocal leader, which he is for this offense, like, make no mistake about it, it's taken a lot of work to get to that point, because he's not one of those guys who's going to, command all this attention. In fact, he was telling me it's awkward when he goes out around here and goes to dinner and people want autographs and photos and all those kinds of things. Like, that's just really not naturally who he is, but he understands that it comes with the territory. And so much of this offseason for him has been spent trying to improve in those little areas. I mean, he was telling me that this is as lean as he's ever been. We saw the mobility last year. That was really a point of emphasis. And one of the things that Penn State wants from him this year, and Andy Kotelnicki even mentioned it, is they want this offense to be more collaborative with Aller. He's going to have more input. He's going to have more say because they know he can do it. They trust his feedback. They trust his input. But absolutely, I mean, this is one of the most intriguing players in college football, one of the most interesting quarterbacks in the country. I mean, this is a guy that, I think we'll be seeing down the road with the NFL draft in Pittsburgh in the spring. There's going to be a lot of eyes on Aller this year, but it's about him stepping up and really owning those moments.
Audrey, I mentioned Andy Kotelnicki, so let's finish with the Penn State offensive coordinator who last year relied so much on Tyler Warren. He allowed Penn State to call plays offensively like very few offenses could because of his unique skill set. Without Warren in the fold, who does Drew Aller throw the ball to, and how much does Andy Kotelnicki's play calling change?
That is the biggest question around here. I mean, the Penn State receiving corps has been under the microscope the last several years, and it's really no different this year. However, the faces have certainly changed. You go out, you bring in Kyron Hudson, Devontae Ross, and Trevor Pena. Pena, of course, commits to Penn State in the spring, the Syracuse transfer. There's a very good possibility those three are your starters come the fall. And so it's all about Aller building that rapport with those newer guys, but also James Franklin kind of dropped his first, I don't think enough of you are talking about, of the season on Saturday. And that guy was tight end Khalil Dinkins. And, you mentioned Tyler Warren and the fact that he was so much of this offense. They still have a lot of really good tight ends in that room. Andrew Rapley is back healthy. Dinkins, again, certainly Luke Reynolds. A lot of people remember from the fake punt against last year at Minnesota. So there's a lot of talent that they have to work through. But again, let's not overcomplicate this. You have what could be the best running back room in the country at your disposal, too. So this doesn't have to all be on Drew Aller in the receiving corps.
An embarrassment of riches, certainly in the backfield, and amazing those guys have stayed in State College their entire careers. Maybe the best and least talked about recruiting job in the country because it's not traditional recruiting, but James Franklin and Andy Kotelnicki certainly know how important it has been. Audrey Snyder, truly appreciate all the input. Look forward to seeing that upcoming article on Drew Aller and talking with you throughout the course of the season.
You got it. Thank you.
More on Penn State coming your way later tonight as Dave Revson, Jake Butt, and Jerry DiNardo sit down with James Franklin and look ahead to the 2025 Nittany Lions season. Our Penn State football training camp show debuts at midnight Eastern, 9 Pacific, only on the Big Ten Network. From State College to College Park when we come back, our training camp crew has the latest on Maryland after their preseason taste of the Terps. All that and more when Big Ten Today returns right after this. Maryland looks to bounce back after a disappointing 2024 with a heavily revamped roster. Terps returned just 42% of their total production from a year ago, a total that ranks next to last in the Big Ten and outside the top 100 nationally. Our training camp tour crew has more from College Park after they had the chance to watch the new-look Terps in action.
Rick, thanks. Dave Revson here with Jake Butt as we put into perspective what we saw here at Maryland today. Mike Locksley and the Terps trying to bounce back at a disappointing 4-win season a year ago. This on the heels of 3 straight years where they won 7 or more games, made it to a bowl game. Jake, we had a chance to watch them here. What do you think about their chances of getting this thing back on track?
Well, this is an interesting season, an important season, a lot of newness. 3 new coordinators, you're introducing a new quarterback, a ton of new starters and new faces on both sides of the ball. We did not get to see the talented freshman Malik Washington practice today, so let's look at everything else. The offensive line is the key for this team. Body type-wise, they look bigger, stronger, and I would expect them to take a stride this fall, just off what I saw, and they were still missing some key pieces that didn't practice today. No long-term concerns. Wide receiver room, rinse and repeat. They're talented there. They're deep there. I have no issues at all. How about the defense? Okay, so in comes Ted Monachino installing this 3-4 scheme. They're going to be aggressive once again. They're going to want to pressure. The key is last year they were aggressive, gave up far too many big explosive plays. More games are lost than won. That's your concern with all these new faces. But I like the veteran aspect of both coordinators to help lead these guys. Those first 3 games out of conference, Dave, are critical for this team to get off to a fast start.
And they have done that. I mean, there is no team in FBS that has a better out-of-conference record, including bowl games than Maryland. They've gone undefeated over the last 4 years, the only team that can make that claim. So the Terps have gotten off to good starts. The issue has been, or certainly the issue was last year when they got into conference play, just the 1 win a season ago. So you mentioned some of the issues, some of the things they have to clean up, particularly the big plays. To me, the other thing they've got to do better is running the ball. And part of that is, I think, what you were talking to, the offensive line issues a season ago. You seem to think, at least physically, they've addressed those. Roman Hemby's gone. Nolan Ray now is the lead running back. Are they good enough in the backfield to be able to control the ball on the ground?
I do believe so. And honestly, I didn't think it mattered. You could have had Adrian Peterson running the ball last year. There was just no holes. There was no space. Billy Edwards was getting hit. It really all does come back to the offensive line. And this is just to tell the story of today. We have to go back last year, bringing in Brian Ferentz. He's spending a ton of time with the scout team. Guys get a chance to rep this system. And I think last year is a chance of looking at planting seeds. This fall is about picking fruit. That's the foundation of this offense.
Well, that is the biggest challenge, obviously, is the change in coaches. What does Pep Hamilton bring? What does Ted Monachino bring as well? In terms of strengths, it feels to me like the biggest one is this wide receiver crew. Octavian Smith had a big catch here today in team drills. Jalil Farouk, who they brought in from Oklahoma, is talented. I know you like the tight end as well. They got an impressive transfer there. So I think there are some pieces that fit together here. Where do you see that group fitting in as compared to the rest of the Big Ten?
At a minimum, I would say top half, and just knowing this Maryland system, they've had a top 3 passing offense in the Big Ten the past 4 seasons. So a standard has been set here. And just looking at the talent, looking at the body types, there's a lot of reasons to be excited. And kind of the full picture here is, we just talked about it. They've had a lot of early season success, late season struggles. I wonder if that flips this year, just because what you would expect is introducing new coordinators, young new quarterback, new pieces. You'd expect there to be some early season challenges for them to then grow and hit their stride at the end of the season. So I'm wondering if the schedule could start to play a factor into their success as well.
Again, fascinated to see what Malik Washington looks like, and I think that was the only downside, the only thing we weren't able to take out of the practice today is Malik Washington was held out due to a lower body issue. They said they believe this to be short term. When Mike Locksley was talking to us, he kind of intimated maybe back within a week or so. How important are those reps for a young quarterback this time of year, Jake? Even cognizant of the fact that he was an early enrollee, he was here in the winter and was here for spring football.
Every rep is important. It's an exponential curve when you're young. You know, every single day you expect to make big time strides, but the real key is what you just said, which he was an early enrollee. He's been through spring. He's been through summer. Talking to the coaches, he's been attached to Pep Hamilton's hip. So, and even talking to Coach Hamilton, he's going to put a lot on whoever it is at quarterback. There's shifts, there's motions. They're going to try to create a schematic advantage pre-snap. And he has no concerns with Malik or anybody going into this season. So just looking at him, though, you could see why he was such a highly touted recruit. I mean, he's a physically impressive kid. And again, you know, I go back to the schedule. If it is him, those first 3 games, I'd expect him to play all 4 quarters regardless, just so he can get the game reps.
So for Maryland to have a successful year this year, defined as getting back to that postseason eligibility, 7-8 wins, the kind of teams they had as recently as 2 years ago, what do you believe needs to happen?
It's about avoiding the things that beat yourself, because Locksley recruits well. There's talent on this roster, no doubt. The margins are extremely thin here in the Big Ten. So it's not always about winning. Sometimes when you strive and go beyond yourself to win, that's when you make the mistakes, and that's when losses start to happen. Can this team play disciplined football, particularly late in the season in November? And that's what fall camp is about. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be mentally challenging. So when you're tired and sore and injured late in the season, you can still be mentally at your best.
And to your point, those games that are won and lost on the margins, penalties were an issue last year. They've been an issue in recent years for Mike Locksley. Turnover margin, particularly in the Big Ten games, -8 in conference play.
It's hard to win games like that.
It's really hard to win, so we'll see whether or not they can turn that around this year. We're off to Penn State. Can't wait to see the Nittany Lions coming up on Tuesday, Rick.
Illinois opens the season ranked number 12 in the coaches poll, the program's highest ranking since 1990. Illinois returns an FBS high 16 starters from last year's squad that tied the team record for both overall wins and wins over ranked opposition. While this is new ground for most of the Illini players, it's a much more familiar situation for head coach Bret Bielema.
I think and I'm sure you guys, followed some of the stuff we said in Vegas, and I always say, like, everybody's talking about the expectations, and just like you earned 10 wins last year, you earn expectations, right? And there's no doubt in my mind that there was a lot of work that went into last year, but just making cut-ups and edits for this coming fall camp and what I try to teach our guys. I just go back to, we were a 10-win team that had to kick a field goal with 2 seconds from 36 yards to beat a Purdue team that won 1 game all year, right? That field goal that we converted put us in a tie that allowed us to go to overtime where we won it, right? But the difference in this league is so small, like anybody can get anybody on any given Saturday, and I think that message right there, that I'm sure shocks some of the people that are sitting in this room, right? Like, it should slap our guys in the face tomorrow as well. Like, listen, a team that won 1 game and transitioned their whole staff, we had to kick a third, which isn't a chip shot field goal, right? And to hit that field goal to give us a chance to win that game, to put us on the path, it really gave us the 10 wins. I'm not oblivious to the fact that, we had to have a call timeout, not by us, by the other sideline, to give us a chance to win the Rutgers game, right? So there's a lot. Now, we did a lot of really good things, too. We won a convincing game against the defending national champs at our home stadium in front of a great crowd, which was one of the best environments I've ever been in college football, regardless of where I've been. So, there's a lot of things that were good last year, but we have to remember how quick those things could have changed in a different direction if we hadn't worked to get to where we are. So I know the expectation, the spotlight is new for our players. It's new for people in this room as well as our fan base, which is awesome. I would like this to become more of the norm instead of the exception.
Meantime, one of the main attractions in Ann Arbor is the quarterback competition underway at Michigan. The focus is highly touted freshman Bryce Underwood, who arrives with as much hype as any Wolverine QB in recent memory. But with productive veteran transfer Mikey Keene also in the fold, competition does remain the key word for Chip Lindsey and the offensive staff.
I think you always want to know as soon as you can. I mean, that's the goal. I do think that, we have a good plan on, competition and getting guys reps, and I think more than just getting reps, put them in different situations, and it takes time to do that. For instance, you can have so many days of what they call install, right, usually base downs and so forth, but then as you get to third down, you don't do that early in camp sometimes as you get to red zone. So I think for us, we're trying to rotate those guys and put them all in those different situations and see how they respond, because I think really the key to playing good quarterback is understanding situational football and making great decisions. And they're all competitive, they're all smart, they're all doing a great job when they get their reps. But when the heat's on and you're in those tight moments, who can run the team and who can make the best decisions is the key.
And of course, Michigan opens up its 2025 season under the lights at home on Saturday night, August the 30th. That's it for Big Ten Today. Hope to see you again Wednesday at noon Eastern.